Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at the second chakra. And this is your sacral chakra. So it's just above the root chakra. And it's located just beneath your belly button, deep in your belly. And it includes your reproductive organs, your pelvis here, and that lower tummy area as well. And this chakra is associated with your emotions. It's associated with change. It's associated with creativity. So if you think about it, this is your sensual area as well, with those reproductive organs. So it's about sexuality and reproduction in terms of certainly physical reproduction, so having children, but also that sense of creativity, the creation on all levels, physical, emotional, vibrational. So we're going to be exploring those different ideas and how they mesh together, how they meld together. And the other thing about this area is that it has a lot to do with change. So the element associated with this area is water. So you can think about it in terms of water flowing and being in that flow, which automatically encompasses change. So the tides or a river flowing. So the structure of the riverbed is always changing. The water is changing the rocks. It's making them into different shapes always. So this approach, this practice that we're doing today is going to help you to be able to navigate change more easily, more gracefully. Yeah. So, as always, with these restorative practices, you want to make sure that you have a lot of blankets, pillows, yoga blocks around you. If you don't have any yoga blocks, I would recommend just in making that investment. They're not too much, they don't cost too much, and you can buy them online, certainly. And if you don't have yoga blocks, then you can make do for right now with pillows and things like that, and possibly books if you need to use those. Great. So if you need to grab those, go ahead and pause the video and get those props for yourself. And when we come back, take your comfortable seat. Bring your hands to heart center, close your eyes. We're going to take some nice deep breaths here. Inhaling to the count of 3. And exhaling to the count of 3. Or 4 if you'd like to take it longer. And then you're going to take one hand on top of the other, palms facing up, and allow your hands to just rest in your lap. You can imagine that you're holding water in that cup in the palm of your hand. Keep inhaling and exhaling. And allow this breath, this inhale, to traverse your spine and go all the way down to the base of this sacral chakra area. So just below your belly button here. And you can imagine that there's a trampoline right at the bottom. And it bounces off of that trampoline, that inhale, and the exhale bounces back up and slowly makes its way back up your spine and out of your nose. ahead and release any tension that you might be feeling in your jaw. Soften your tongue, soften your eyes. And then we'll bring our hands back to heart center and take a few moments here to set an intention for yourself for today within this practice. And perhaps that has to do with allowing yourself to go with the flow, to allow yourself to navigate any changes that might be happening in your life right now with that ease and grace. And it really just has to do with softening, with allowing yourself to be moved by that current. Perhaps it's allowing yourself to feel any emotions that do come up for you, to embrace them and honor them. So we'll open today with one audible sigh followed by an om. Take a nice deep breath in. And another deep breath. So you can release your hands. Let's keep our eyes closed for another moment here. So the color that's associated with the sacral chakra is a vibrant orange. So I'd like you to imagine that color in this sacral area right now. And it can start out as a small spark. And then you can allow it to grow so that it is radiating out into your lower belly, into your reproductive organs, into your pelvis. And really just nourishing that whole part of your body. And we'll come back to that later, again in the practice. So gently open your eyes. Hi. So we're going to start off today actually getting familiar with this comfortable seat that we're in right now. So when we say take a comfortable seat at the beginning of class, if you're new to yoga, that doesn't mean a whole lot, right? So let's talk about how we can make that seat comfortable for you. Now, for some people, this is going to mean that you want to take your pillows or your blankets and put them under your tush here. So we generally sit in a cross-legged position. So what you might find here as well is that your knees may be lifting up. Okay? And so for that, you can grab your blocks here, or if you don't have blocks, you can use blankets, and you can prop your knees up as well. Okay, so this is going to be probably a lot more comfortable. Now, if you are sitting like this, you do need to pay a little bit of attention to your ankles here. So if you'll see, this is kind of the tendency is to have the feet so that they're moving, so that they're not in line. So the ankles are not in line with the rest of your leg. And this is not great for your ankles or even for your knees. So if you do have your legs up like this, then you want to make sure that your feet and your ankles are in line with the rest of your leg. So as opposed to this, you're going to do this. So you're going to have your feet a little more flexed, but it's not super active either. So this might be a very comfortable seat for you, hopefully. And again, you want to make sure that you can relax your legs. We don't want to be holding any tension here in our hip crease area. Okay, and then your hands simply rest either on your knees, either palms facing up or palms facing down. And if you want to have more of an open feeling to your seat, to your pose, then palms can face up. And if you'd like to take your pointer finger and thumb and place them together, you can. Or if you'd like to have more of a grounded feeling to this pose, you can place your palms down and again take your pointer finger and thumb together. The other thing about this pose is that you want to make sure that your pelvis is even, right? So let's talk about it in terms of this sacral area here. You can think of your pelvis as a bowl, and this bowl is holding water. So you want to make sure that your bowl is not tipping too far forward, so that your pelvis is not tipping too far forward. And you want to make sure that you're not tucking it under too much either, right? So see if you can think about pulling your spine out of your pelvis, up out of your pelvis. And this will help you find that alignment of your pelvic bowl, if you want to call it that. So you are lifting tall out of the pelvis. And then the head, we want stacked on top of that spine. Now we have these wonderful curves in the spine, so it's not going to be completely straight, of course, but you do want to feel as if the head is lifting up. So imagine that you had a string coming out of the top of your head, pulling up, and you can get that length there. This way you're not jutting the chin out too much or pulling it back too much. And that's going to help you keep the curve that's in your cervical spine here, in your neck. So take a few moments here to to see how that comfortable seat feels to you. You might find that you're breathing more easily. Great. Yeah, so you can move your props out of the way. That's your easy seat. It's also called Sukhasana. There are different versions of an easy seat as well, you'll find. And right now we're going to come into into table pose. So let's go ahead and take some cat-cows here. So you can inhale into your cow and exhale your cat. Pressing your hands strongly into the mat. Inhaling cow. Exhaling cat. And just take any movements here that feel good to you. See what your body wants to do here. And remember, these restorative classes are good for anyone who has maybe a stronger practice or is an athlete, and for those of you who might have some challenges with mobility. So you can do all of these poses, or most of these poses usually, on your bed as well. And then here we're going to take the hips back, press the hips into a child's pose, You can keep it up here if you can't go all the way back, that's fine. Or if your hips do go all the way back, take your arms out in front of you. Let's just rest the arms. Take them into like a diamond shape. So bring your hands together and then rest the forehead on the mat. Or if it doesn't reach down that far, you can rest it up on a block. We're going to inhale, lift up. So now we've done the non-prop version of child's pose, which is also called balasana. And now we're going to take this longer version of balasana. So go ahead and grab a bolster if you have one. This is obviously a sleeping bag. So sleeping bags work well. Again, pillows work well. And you want to make sure that you have something kind of in between your legs here. And you might end up coming to an incline. So you may need to double this up, double your pillow up, maybe. And this is all about finding the best option for you. Now, the other thing that I like to do here is to have some blankets on either side, blankets or blocks, really, on either side for my arms. You have a couple of options with that as well, and I'll show you what those are. So then from here, you're still in your child's pose legs. Also, if this isn't comfortable for you, you can lift your hips up by putting a pillow in between your legs here. And if that's not comfortable for your feet, when you come forward, you can place some padding underneath your ankles. If you want to take a small towel and put it underneath your ankles, that's helpful here. So we have all these different options. So wherever you are, this is the most important part right here, because we're going to be leaning forward. And then you can rest your head to one side or the other. The arms can come out beside you. So find the best place for those blankets or blocks here. And then you can also bring your arms out further up. So one of the keys to these restorative poses is to really allow your body to sink into the props. You can take your head to the other side here. if you find your mind trying to take you into shoulds or other things, trying to think a lot, just let that be okay. Allow your mind to, or allow yourself to witness those thoughts and not get involved in them. This is your time to just be present. And then you can begin to bring yourself out of your pose. Just pressing up here. And then we're going to come into deer pose. And there are a couple of different ways to do this, but the setup is basically the same. You may not need as much length in your bolster. But let's start out with your right leg here. So you're going to bring your right leg forward so that your shin here is parallel to the front of your mat. So I think you can see that. And then the left leg is going to go out behind you. Now, if that's a little bit too much for you, then you can bring this right leg in a little bit more as well. So we'll give you the different options here. You can also bring the left knee in. So it just depends on where your muscles are today and where your joints are today. This can sometimes not feel so great to people. If you find that this left sits bone is lifting up, which it probably will, then you can take a low blanket and put it underneath there so that your leg is resting on there. So for me today, it feels better to pull this knee up just a little bit. And then from here, you can actually bring the bolster in towards your belly. And if you're like me and you have a multi-piece bolster, you can bring it in as well. And then you can lean over this front leg. Okay, now that's one option that you're seeing here. And remember, you can pad this left leg a little bit more if you want to get some more height here. And you can either take your head and look to the left, or if you want a little bit more of a stretch in your neck, you can look to the right. Okay. Now, if that is too much, you can also bring this right foot in closer and come back into your forward fold here. So again, whatever works for you today. I'm going to take it out a little bit further from my body. And again, you can have these blankets by your sides for your arms to rest on. If this is still more of a stretch in your front leg, then feels good. You can also put some more height underneath your tush here. So in that case, you would take another blanket or pillow underneath your right hip, and then that'll help you out with that right leg there. Connecting with this wateriness, this tide of your breath. Releasing your jaws. Releasing your tongue. Softening your eyes and your face. So gently press yourself up here. And we're just going to switch sides. So bring that left leg in front. Right leg comes back. And readjust your heights of your blankets. Right, so the center bolster is going to stay the same, but you might want to raise your hips up. You might want to put this blanket again underneath the right leg. Give yourself some height and support there. So find a pose here, the pose here that's for you, that's going to be comfortable for you to hold for some time. And again, if you want to take your head looking to the right this time, that's going to be more comfortable. To the left is going to be a little bit more of a stretch. I'm going to continue to look left because I have this microphone on, so I can't really look to the right because it squishes the microphone. And you may notice that you need to adjust yourself in a slightly different way on this side. So for instance, I'm finding that this particular way is not quite working for me on this side, so because our bodies are different on different sides. So I'm going to make a few adjustments here. Yeah, so this is something that I can hold for longer. This is more comfortable. has more ease in the pose. Staying present to the breath, to any emotions that may or may not be coming up for you. Just continuing to breathe here. And you can gently press yourself up out of our deer pose here. So we're going to take a supported Virasana now. So you can move some of your props out of the way here. And you are going to need some props to put underneath your tush here. So regular Virasana is like this. So your legs are bent and you can get into it from the side. Well, I'll just show you from the side. How about that? You can get into it this way with your hips lifted up to begin with. And then you're going to place a pillow behind you, pillow or a blanket. And if you need more height, you can put more pillows up there. And then you're going to sit back in between your legs, or as if you're sitting in between your legs. Okay? So your feet are flat against the mat here. And you can even maybe pull the pinky toes out to the sides, because they like to kind of crunch in. So we want to have the toes nice and widely spread here, if you can see that. Now, you have some options here, of course. Love to give you lots of options. If you'd like to keep your Virasana here, if this feels comfortable to you, then do that. Just make sure that you are clicking these toenails into the floor, into your mat. This is going to help protect your knee joints. Okay? Another option is you can place your bolster in between your legs, kind of like what we did before with Balasana, with our supported child's pose. And then you can come forward here if you'd like to, resting your head. So it is similar in some ways to our Balasana. Now, if you have a little bit more mobility and you'd like to lean back, you can take your bolster back behind you, pull it in towards your lower back, and lean back here. You're going to want something to support your head back here. So you can either layer some blocks underneath your head or bring pillows underneath your head. You're going to have to kind of stack them. So this might take a little bit of doing here. So I'm actually going to grab some blocks. So whichever version you have, simply the seated, in which case you can just take your hands on top of your thighs, or you can lean forward, or if you'd like to have just a very slight back bend here, you can do that as well. So I'm going to place these blocks back here. There we go. Yeah, and then your arms can either be by your sides propped up on blankets. So this one takes possibly a lot of props. Or you can simply bring them over your head, resting on your forehead or onto your belly maybe. So you can even interlace your hands and allow your arms to just drop by your sides. Again, releasing your jaw. Releasing your tongue. Releasing your eyes. Allowing your body to simply rest, to simply sink into your props. So slowly get yourself out of this pose. If you're leaning back, this is always an interesting one to get out of, but I suggest leaning to the side on an elbow Then you can press yourself up. So part of what we're doing here is finding stillness within this change, within these changes, right? So restorative is a wonderful practice for when you are experiencing some turbulence, perhaps, in your life. So these next poses are going to be similar setups to what we were doing before. We're going to do pigeon. So this is an interesting one for a restorative choice. So if pigeon is in your practice, then you can go ahead and take just a very easy pigeon, right? But making sure that the back leg is in line. So the back heel is in line with the back knee, is in line with this left hip. Okay? And those toes are actively pressing into the floor, into the mat. Do want to make sure that in this version of pigeon that your right foot is coming in towards your groin. Okay, sometimes in our pigeon we take the foot further forward, but you want to have it in further towards your groin, and you want to make sure that the outer right foot, the edge of the foot, is pressing into the mat. So it's a little bit more of an active pose at this point. So from here, if you find that you're lifting up off of the mat, then you're going to want to put some padding underneath this right hip. Okay, so I'm going to grab a blanket here. Grab 2 blankets because I think we're going to put one somewhere else as well. So this blanket goes rolled up under here, okay? So kind of under the top part of that left thigh. And then this other blanket can go underneath the right leg here. So we still want that right knee to go out to the right a little bit. We don't want it right underneath us. Well, you can do that actually if you want to. That's not so bad. And then we're going to put the bolster, our wonderful bolster, right underneath our chest, as close into the belly as possible here. And then if you need a headrest. So you might find now here that you can allow your body to relax and just release the arms. Stay here for another minute or so. So you can lift up here gently, and we're just going to change sides. So left foot, left leg comes in, right leg comes out behind you. Maybe even take a look back behind you to see if your leg is in line. Make sure it's in line. And if this is too much of a stretch for you here, again, that's fine. I should have said this before. But you can just bring that leg in. So very similar to that deer pose that we did before, if not the same. Might be the same. Okay. And lifting up and out and folding forward here. So gently lift yourself up here. And you can move your props out of the way. We're going to do a different kind of a setup here. So this is going to be Supta Baddha Konasana. So what you're going to want here is a lot of blocks if you have them. So the way I like to set this up actually is, where did my other block go? Here it is. Okay. To make like a ramp behind me, so I'm going to grab this pillow and put it right back here so that there's this ramp that I can lie back on. Now, if you don't have blocks, then you can certainly just roll up blankets, find other things to put behind you so that it has this kind of angle to it. Okay, I don't need this other pillow right now. And then for your legs, so we're going to come into Supta Baddha, or into Baddha Konasana, right? So you'll see that my knees are a little bit off of the floor, not too much, but some of you, your knees are going to be further up. So you're either going to want to roll up your blankets a bunch so that your leg just rests on that blanket, or you can put blocks underneath your knees or underneath your legs. So I prefer to use some softer blocks here for this purpose. The cork blocks are good for other purposes. These are a little bit softer. And you can take your feet out further if that's more comfortable for you, or you can bring them in further, whichever you'd prefer. And then you're going to gently lie back. Now, depending on where your head is with this setup, you may need to put a block or something else under your head so that it has something to rest on. So let me see if I can get this at a good angle here. Yeah. Great. And then your arms, you can have blankets beside you if you'd like to. Or you can simply rest them so that you're getting some chest opening here, as well as opening up these hips that we're playing with today. You can begin to bring yourself out of your setup here. And again, move your props over to one side. And we're going to take Viparita Karani here. So that's legs up the wall. It's a wonderful way to invert, right? So we haven't done any down dogs or any other types of inversions really today. So what you're going to want to do is find a wall for yourself and then place a pillow kind of close to that wall. Take your hips up onto the pillow. And then lean yourself back. You want your tush about like half a foot to a foot away from the wall, so that when you take your legs up, your heels are resting against the wall, so you don't have to put a whole lot of effort into it. Now your arms can be out by your sides in a T shape, or you can simply rest one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart center. But find out what works for you. So for instance, for me right now, I need to move myself a little bit closer to the wall right here. So that feels a little bit better. And again, close your eyes. bring yourself slowly out of your pose here. You can roll to one side or the other. We're going to set up for our Shavasana. So you might find that you like to have some support underneath your legs for your Shavasana, under your knees here. You can also bring a blanket over your body if you want to. That always feels nice, especially over your pelvis. Putting some weight over your pelvis. In fact, let's do that. If you have a blanket, let's put it over the pelvis, weighting down that watery bowl that we've been talking about today. Feet are as wide as your mat or wider. Arms are away from your side, palms facing up. You want to just release anything and everything about your practice today, within your day. Just let it all go. And I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. It took a long breath and replied, I've been waiting my whole life for this. Begin to deepen your breath. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Bring your arms up overhead, straighten your legs out, reach out through your legs and your feet. See how tall you've gotten today. And then bring your knees into your chest and roll to one side or the other. And allow yourself to stay here for a few moments to really appreciate yourself for taking this time for yourself. Gently, lovingly press yourself up to a seated position. Bring your hands to heart center and we'll seal our practice today with one final Om. Take a nice deep breath in. And this ever-changing, beautiful, creative self and bright, loving heart that is within me, that is me, acknowledges and honors and bows to this ever-changing, creative part of you and the bright, loving heart that you are. Namaste.